Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable program. I'm Paul Dingeman. Our special guest today is the state senator from the 25th Senatorial District in Michigan, Senator Phil Pavlov. Welcome back to the Roundtable, Senator.
Great to be back.
Nice
Thanks.
to see you.
Yes.
We called you to have you come in because the wonderful election, the quiet little election of 2016 is finally over, and we thought we better get a perspective of the long view of what your thoughts are, what's going to happen in Washington, what's going to happen in Lansing, what kinds of changes do you think this volatile election brought us?
Well, volatile is right, and I think most of your viewers are glad that it's in the rearview mirror.
Right.
And now the real task of organizing a government is well underway, and there's new realities in our political system. And I think that you're going to start to see a healing. I mean, obviously, we are a country that just went through a very deliberate and long drawn-out process to pick our next leader. And the great thing about it is the Republic is strong. There'll be a peaceful transfer of power, and they'll go to work on the challenges and the things that, particularly President-elect Trump talked about on the campaign trail. And I think he struck a chord with America. Clearly, the people in this country are looking for a different direction, and he demonstrated that he would take that path when he became president.
You were speaking at the Rotary today, and you mentioned that you thought it was very nice that Obama and Hillary Clinton both came out and and talked.
Yeah, I mean, elections are hard fought. They're very emotional, and things get said on the campaign trail, and it's a battle. It really is. But when the election results are in, Hillary Clinton, in her concession speech, wished the best to Donald Trump, as did President Obama, in reaching out to him shortly after the election, invited him to the White House, and offered any kind of help that his administration can be in the transition period. And that's just a hallmark of our great country.
The first meeting of the president and the president-elect was supposed to be a short one, just a photo op.
Right.
But as they said, it went for 90 minutes, and it looked like they enjoyed each other, at least learned from each other.
Well, I think it's a new reality, and you have your gladiator suit on when you're going through that, and that suit goes in the closet, and then you have to govern, and it's a very, we have a challenge ahead of us in governing this country, and any help, anybody who will add to the presidency in terms of support, because the country is larger than the person in that office.
It's going to be interesting, just as a quick sidelight, you see the hair color change on Obama from when he first went in until today. What's going to happen to that yellow hair?
Well, it might get another tint of orange in it, but I don't know where it goes from the color that he has now. But the stress is real, and I'm sure that he's going to approach it in a respectful way.
Let's talk about what some of the changes you forecast for the state of Michigan in regard to how the Washington side of it fits in with the Michigan side.
Yeah, well, the current President Obama did a lot of governing through executive orders, and that's basically signing a piece of paper, so it'll be written, so it'll be said. I think that you'll see Donald Trump start to undo some of those executive orders early on before the legislative process gets through, and those can be very impactful to the state of Michigan. We all know that our local power plant is being scheduled to be closed down. That was a directive from an executive order, essentially, putting a ban on coal and the emissions. This president might look at that a little bit differently. So we'll have to make sure we have an energy policy that's geared to deal with that dynamic.
A Michigan policy or a federal policy?
It's a federal policy, but again, since Michigan is kind of a peninsula, we have our own unique challenges in terms of generating power and distributing it, transmission. Other states can move power lines across state. We really can't because we're a destination. So that'll have an impact. I think Obamacare is going to be something that's going to land in the lap of the legislature, trying to unravel the changes that come along with that. It was heavily weighted toward federal funding to get the states to come on board with it. Michigan was one that adopted the Medicaid expansion. If that funding is to go away, we have 630,000 new people on Medicaid in the state of Michigan. When that funding goes away, you have to be able to deal with that if it comes down to that. So there'll be a number of issues that will affect state government and legislatures.
So do you think the federal government will send more money towards the states to support it, or?
Well, I think what you'll see if Donald Trump is true to his vision about, getting rid of the federal mandates on states and turning more of those powers back to the states, which is a great thing. I'm a big states' rights guy.
Right, I know you are.
Some of that money will come to us, maybe perhaps in the form of block grants,
Okay.
and will allow us
Okay.
to be able to structure the kind of coverage that we need based on our population, based on our healthcare system. And again, the closer you can have that decision to the people that you represent, the better it is. And I think with the overwhelming electoral college success that he had, that's what people are asking for.
Okay, bring it down back to Michigan.
Yeah.
Senator or Governor Snyder is going to be term limited out in 2018. Will any of the things that happened in Washington affect his last 2 years?
I think it might, and there'll be a couple places where it does. I mean, the governor will be looking to finish, his last 2 years of his 2 terms in a positive way. So the governor is really focused on the jobs and the economy in the state of Michigan. And if the early signals out of the Trump administration come to fruition, you'll be dealing with tax cuts, which is a good thing for business. You'll see perhaps a strengthening, a deeper commitment of the automotive industry to Michigan. I think the trade conversation that Trump has had nationally about making America first again,
Right.
those kind of policies really work well for our automotive industry. If anything, they're just looking for some stability and some signal from Washington that this is going to be the pathway. And so I think you'll start to see more of the economic game plan for the governor play out.
Okay. You have been chairman of the Education Committee in the State Senate for a number of years now.
Yes.
And that will continue this coming year?
Yeah, we'll be on there for 2 more years.
2 more years.
And we still have work to do. Some big things that we got done last year is we worked really hard on an early literacy program for our schools, and we'll come
Is
back
that
this
different
year.
than early childhood?
It is. It's really addressing 2nd and 3rd grade reading levels.
Oh, okay.
And so we're going to start putting more resources into kindergarten through 3rd grade to help the students along with reading.
You want to stop and have a water?
You got one?
Yeah. Eric, can you grab us some water out of the ice box? Just keep rolling. We can handle it later.
Yeah.
Grab 2 of them. Yeah, and then we'll just go ahead. You can leave the water right up here, too.
Okay.
No problem.
Caught up on me. Video, water boy at the same time.
Hey, what a guy. We can get you a job with the governor.
Get you in the Trump administration now.
Right. You back, Eric? Oh, there he is.
Thanks.
Are we still rolling? Hello? I don't hear you. What? Still can't hear you.
Is water on the desk? Do you
Oh,
want
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. 5, 4. I got to think of a question first.
Undo the education one over again?
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to do the education one over again. He doesn't care. 5, 4, 3. Senator, you've been on chairman of the Education Committee in the state legislature for 4 years now?
6 years.
6 years already. Wow. You got 2 more years term left on that term. Where are you at? Where are we at as a state on the education?
Well, the good news is the funding picture is improving. As our economy recovers, we have more money for our school aid fund. That is what the main funding source is. And I think when you look at where Michigan's economy is, when the jobs come back, the families come back, and hopefully we see an end toward the decline in enrollment that's been kind of plaguing most of the districts across the state. So we've got a stable fundamental base in place now. And I think besides the funding picture, we start looking at policies. I think what you are starting to see from the federal government even last year is pushing more of the responsibilities back to states, which is a good thing. So, we're working through the Every Student Succeeds Act, which gives a lot of power back to the state, lets your state school board have a little bit more authority in terms of their policy. And that gets us away from the federal strings that are attached to our education system, and that's a good thing for local districts.
State Board of Education that you just mentioned, There's a change there. There was
Yes.
2 Democrats on there. Now there's going to be 2 Republicans on there.
2 new Republicans, yep, so it's a
Republicans. It'll be
4-4 split.
4-4 split.
Yeah.
Help me explain to me what your committee does and what they do. What is the difference there?
Very
Why?
different. The State Board of Education is a constitutional office, so our Constitution calls for a State Board of Education. Their main role is to advise on education policy. They also oversee the Department of Education, which is the agency that works with a lot of the federal compliance, and the federal money all goes through the Department of Education.
Okay.
Now the legislature, we're very different. We're in charge of the rest of the system. We're in charge of building a system of schools.
Okay.
And so the legislative, we don't really cross on policy. State Board would have theirs, we would have ours, but we have it in statute. It's about the clearest definition.
Okay. We talked a little earlier at the Rotary meeting about the base for education across the state is like $7,000.
Yeah.
But when we look at the national rankings of education in Michigan, we're in the lower part of that.
Mm-hmm.
How can we change, either add more money or lower money, get our ratings up a little higher?
Well, grow our economy.
Is that your committee or is that
Well,
State Board?
it's our committee. It would be the Appropriations Committee, which I also sit on that. So we have a budget every year of around $14 billion in school aid, and that goes back to all the districts. And we're seeing growth in that fund as well. That's the money that we get for education from sales tax, Michigan income tax, and property tax. So with our economy recovering and our housing market coming back, our property values are going up,
Right.
and that fund is getting much stronger.
Good.
And so those are the kind of tools that we use to appropriate back to the districts, the foundation allowance. And then there's also a local property value that districts can go out and bond for too.
But how are we going to make education better, I guess, is the question.
Well, that's a challenge
you're
for everybody.
using-
That's what we
you're
all want to
using
do.
money,
Yeah, it isn't always necessarily money. I mean,
Right.
you want to be able to spend on programs that are going to return value.
Right.
But I think some of the things that we do in focusing on the early literacy, I think is a big piece of the policy to get right. So many of our kids might not have been prepared for 4th grade at the reading proficiencies that they should have. So focusing on that so they're prepared more for the next phase in their career
Should make those numbers go up.
it should make those numbers go up, and we're getting good teachers in the classroom. It's always a challenge because it's a push-pull all the time. You can always use more resources, but I think the population across the state is stabilizing, so districts aren't looking at losing 150 kids a year. That impacts their budget. It creates confusion within the district on replacing personnel. So I think a stable economy is going to be very helpful for districts, and there's an amount of predictability that goes along with it.
Trump is talking about infrastructure projects. The legislature a year ago passed new infrastructure taxes, and
Right.
you're going to start building new roads. What do you see the combination of will double the work if he,
from
if he
the
sends more money?
Yeah, well, from the state's perspective, that new funding starts to kick in now in registrations in 2017.
17.
Yep.
Okay.
So you'll see an increase in your vehicle registration. You'll see an increase in gas tax at the pump. And then that money will be programmed out through Public Act 51. It's a formula, essentially.
Okay.
But what the president is talking about is an additional investment in infrastructure and airports, roads, bridges,
So
sewer.
not necessarily state highways.
Right. It would be in addition to what we're doing as well at the state level. So hopefully, if they come up with the funding source and how they're going to appropriate that, we can better match those federal funds with our state funds and maximize our projects. So we can go in and put the road in, then we don't have to come back 2 years and redo the bridge. So if we can sequence that and match it up with a solid plan from the federal government, it'll put people to work.
You mentioned that your election, you've got 2 years left in your tenure, your
Yes.
term limited, and the governor is term limited. You know that we were just over a rough tumble campaign,
Yes.
but you inferred at the Rotary meeting that we're going to start hearing campaigning again.
It will, because the cycle is never cold. It's always somebody moving to the next position, and people are building support. You'll have a couple of key big names that are potentially going to run for governor. Secretary of State, Attorney General. So it'll really start back up again, not at a
Never
fevered
ends.
pitch, but it just doesn't end because the cycle in getting elected statewide is such a challenge, and you've got to be raising money and building early support. And I think you'll start to see that probably shortly after the first of the year. It won't be hot and heavy like we just got done experiencing in October of this year, but again, people will be positioning themselves because there's a lot at stake in Michigan.
How can the residents of St. Clair County help you?
Well, I always enjoy feedback. We hold office hours. My district goes from New Baltimore to Port Austin, so Mondays and Fridays we're always somewhere. And I appreciate the feedback. We'll do it in coffee shops or whatever, and it's very informal. We list them on our webpage, which is on your screen. And phone calls and emails, it's the best way to kind of contact our office and let us know what you're thinking.
Well, you've certainly got a complete background from working as a Board of Commissioner at the St. Clair County Board of Commissioners, and then going to become a state representative, and now the state senator. It's been a great learning curve for you.
It wasn't a great experience and a great opportunity that the voters have entrusted me to be able to do those jobs. I take them very seriously and do the best we can, and it's great to be a part of that big community. And you get to find out, what's happening, and people are always quick to let you know if you're on the right track or wrong track.
That's right. That's right.
But I appreciate the input.
But you also alluded to the fact that the business you're in, the politics, there's always something, another door opening.
Well, you just never know where you're going to end up, and I've enjoyed almost every minute of my public service and blessed to be able to do that job. But you don't know what the future holds, and you're seeing a new government form up in Washington, and I think some of the people that are being interviewed for some of those positions, you would have never thought they'd be there.
That's correct.
That's
absolutely correct.
You just hang around and do the best you can, and as long as you can add value, there'll be something for you to do.
We're going to keep having you come back.
Well, it's great.
Senator Phil Pavlov, thanks
for
very
having
much
me.
for stopping by the Roundtable.
You bet.
That's about it for this edition of the Roundtable. Till next time, I'm Paul Dingeman. See you soon.